Himalayas. What a grand stage. And we came here to test ride one of the most anticipated motorcycles of 2016. And as we did so, the Himalayas unveiled their beauty and all their wildness. And I think that was quite apt because the motorcycle that we've come to test ride has been inspired by the Himalayas. Yes, the Royal Enfield Himalayan. Like every biker in the country, I was really keen to ride the Himalayan and find out how good it really is. But along with that, there was a tinge of apprehension because it isn't just about the motorcycle. It's also about Royal Enfield and what we think of Royal Enfields. Would this motorcycle be the one where we stop saying it's good for a Royal Enfield and move to just saying it's good, full stop? Well, we have come to the Himalayas to find out exactly that. And since this is an adventure tourer, a category-busting motorcycle, we had to put it through some really tough tests. The Himalayan is an all-new motorcycle, purpose-built for roughing it out. So the telescopic fork might seem ordinary, but it has a massive 200 millimeters of travel, and there's a linked monoshock at the rear, a first for Royal Enfield. And it has 180 millimeters of travel. Most street bikes would have around half of that. No, that wasn't rough enough. Of course not. The Himalayan is built around an all-new dual cradle chassis. It has a proper rough road ready 21-inch front rim and a 17-inch rear. That should make for a strong motorcycle and a well-balanced one. And so the Himalayan was thrashed through every puddle, every rut, every climb and every corner. But the sturdy 41mm fork and the monoshock never bottomed out. And along with the massive 220mm of ground clearance, the bash plate wasn't bothered by a thing. The Himalayan just soaked it all up. Now, one important takeaway from all that thrashing around, nothing broke, nothing fell off. The bike kept running, the engine, yeah, it's looking a little bit mucky, but that's mud, not oil. So on this aspect, build quality, toughness, reliability, I think we can say when it comes to Royal Enfields, it's good. And the faster you go, the better it feels. The ergonomics are just right, egging the rider to stand up and ride. And when you do, the Himalayan feels even better to steer off-road. At 182 kilograms, the Himalayan isn't light, but it was surprisingly easy to chuck around, and it actually inspired a lot of confidence. On the loose and wet stuff, it was properly epic. And on the tarmac, it steered in a neutral and fluid manner. Despite the varying conditions, the Seat Grip XL tires offered a great amount of confidence. For braking, the Himalayan uses a 300mm disc at the front and a 240mm disc at the rear. Both offer plenty of bite, but there's no ABS on offer. The other big takeaway from all that thrashing around is the chassis. It's brilliant. Yeah, whether you're a new rider or an experienced one, you hop onto that saddle, you'll have fun and it won't intimidate you. It'll do what you want it to do and let you enjoy all of it. That's the beauty of it. That low saddle height makes it accessible even for shorter riders. It soaks up the bad roads really well, and through the tarmac sections when they get twisty, it's a lot of fun there too. The only things that I would have liked fine-tuned a little bit differently would have been the suspension, a slightly more pliant ride, so for a softer primary ride for on-road usage would have been nice. The brake, the front disc brake, I think has just a little bit too much dullness to it to make it easier to use off-road so that it doesn't lock up, I understand, but a little bit more sharpness, less effort would have been nice. But that's not the only thing on the Himalayan that we need to talk about. There's also the engine. It's a new engine, the LS 410. The LS here stands for long stroke. This 411cc engine is an all-new motor from Royal Enfield, and it's trying to be modern, but not too modern either. Yes, it uses overhead cams, but it's still a 2-valve engine. And while the engine is cooled, it's only oil-cooled. And in the interest of cost and simplicity, it is carbureted, not fuel-injected. Royal Enfield say this engine is meant to be easygoing, and as we wound our way up and down the hillsides, we found that the Himalayan could lug uphill in a calm but laid-back manner as long as the revs were above 2000 RPM. It was only past 3000 RPM that there seemed to be a spring in its step. A big plus is the fact that this engine can now be revved hard to over 7000 RPM, and it doesn't feel like it's going to break when you do that. Okay, first the good stuff. The engine, it feels smooth for the most part, and the gearbox works really well. But what you can't get away from is that it needs more power. The Himalayan deserves more power, especially a bit more torque, so that you can get up to cruise speeds easier. Right now you rev it up and then it's not that it feels rough. It sounds rough, it sounds a bit thrashy, and that puts you off. But once you get to cruising speeds of say about 80-90 kilometers an hour and you're sitting in 5th gear between 4,500 RPM, it just feels very smooth. Once you're there, you'll cover kilometers, no problem at all. And the other thing is the clutch. It's weighted quite heavy. So when you're in typical city traffic conditions, constant gear changes, going on and off the clutch, it's gonna get pretty tiring. The low temperatures and the altitude mustn't have helped this carbureted engine when it came to performance. So we can't wait to test the Himalayan at lower altitudes on familiar ground. Maybe some of you have already decided that you want to buy an Himalayan, but what is it going to be like to live with? Well, firstly, only if you like simple and functional designs will you like the way the Himalayan looks. There's a very industrious feel to it. The high-mounted headlamp is held up by a tubular frame that runs down the side. It also doubles up as a rack for jerry cans or luggage. For a bit of modern feel, there's a smattering of alloy bits, and the instrument cluster is quite modern, with a compass built into it, which is a bit difficult to understand at first. The 15-litre fuel tank though should give you a good enough range. The slim and soft seat is surprisingly comfortable for long stints, as is the seating position. Royal Enfield has also stretched service intervals to 5,000 kilometers, while an oil change is required every 10,000 kilometers. So the Himalayan is ready to go further in more ways than one. So the Himalayan had to answer a very important question for Royal Enfield, and it answers a part of it with immense conviction. This adventure tourer takes its adventure part very, very seriously. So for those of you looking to bash around muddy trails, this is going to be a lot of fun. But if it had a few rough edges smoothed out, this would make for a fantastic all-rounder. Not just for those looking to go off to the Himalayas, but even for those looking to strut around in the city. It would be an incredible package. But as of now, what it is, we are going to have to say that Royal Enfield's Himalayan, it's good. Full stop.